on a lot going on, and I wanted to make sure that you were updated on all the things. So went to San Diego with the family, went to Ocean Beach. It was incredible. It's absolutely paradise out there. People a little different out there, and always we like to go out there once a year at least, and hit the ocean and enjoy that coast. So that was great for the family. Also, it just brings to mind some points that, while I was on this vacation, I'm working on two operating agreements. One of the operating agreements is very equitable. It's the partnership I'm going into with Midwest Automotive Partners and Thomas Automotive and some others. And that one, very equitable. The investors that I have are very supportive and see this as an investment and believe in me, and very much not in need of a lot of operational control and things of that. They want me to use my experience to give them a great ROI on their investment. So I'm very grateful for that. They're very open-minded and very supportive. So excited for that one. The other one, on the other hand, for the equity raise that I'm doing is very manager heavy. And so the more that you get into these contracts, manager heavy, manager rights, manager oriented just means that whoever the manager of the company is, it basically locks you up to be at their mercy. So this is a deal where you have to have a lot of trust in that manager. So basically how I had been advised by my attorneys was, this is a very trust-oriented agreement. You have to trust this person. They also advised me that, hey, it makes sense a lot of times in these real estate deals to have these things in place. Otherwise, you get deadlocks. Often you get delays and stalls, and it can cause a lot of detriment to the bottom line. Getting a property off because somebody doesn't agree with something, etc., and locking up the deal and locking up the sale or locking up, construction or, just overall decisions. And so those manager heavy operating agreements are there to protect from delays, etc. And so I understand that. I had to absorb that. But it really comes down to how the person who is the managing partner responds to the questions you have about certain clauses in the contract. And my partner, one of the partners who is also the managing partner, his company is the managing partner on the deal, is very forthcoming. Actually, had sent him an email while I was on vacation. That contract actually made me nauseous and anxious. And so I've felt those anxieties before in life many times. But on that contract, I was so nervous about the fact that this is my dream. I want to build and develop. I've tried very hard and very diligently to get opportunities like this, and had never been privy to them. It was very hard to break into that world because it was not in my line of work. It just wasn't connecting with the track of my life and where I was working and the people that I was surrounding myself with. And so it was very hard to get in that market. And also, most importantly, the time didn't allow me to go out and, put myself in those arenas as much as I would like to so that I could get an opportunity like this. Well, eventually, all the effort that I did put in has paid off. And so I'm looking at this as a great opportunity, but also very fearful that based off this contract and how locked in and locked down it is and how at mercy I am to the managing partner, that I would have to say no to it, right? And I think that's the thing that you understand as you get older, at least for me, is that you have to be able to say no to deals. You have to be able to say no to people, set boundaries, all of these things to protect yourself, your family, and the progression of your success. And then also, your return on your investment. You don't want to put in a lot of time and put in a lot of money and then not be able to get an ROI on that when it's, reasonable to get that ROI. If it's dictated by the managing group, it could just sit in there for years and years and years. And they can take as long, usually up to 5 years to repay you. So those are all things you got to be very mindful of. So anyway, it made me sick to my stomach. And while I'm on vacation, My wife was sick, and so I was watching my son, and a lot of stress and anxiety came over me because I thought, man, that is the thing that I really wanted to do. I want to do automotive because it's business, and I have a really strong background there, but I really want to do the equity raises and learn how to do the development and the building and raise money for projects because that's where my heart and my passion lies. And so I thought I was going to have to give that up and restart all of my efforts to try to find another opportunity. So you can imagine the level of stress that I was having in that moment. And I did a lot of soul searching and reviews and spoke to a lot of great friends, colleagues, and then obviously attorneys. And as I got more clear on what I needed to do next, the anxiety subsided. And what I needed to do next was point out these sections or articles in the contract that I was concerned with or needed clarity on or did not agree with, and then, express that before moving forward that we're in alignment on X. So I listed those things out. I notified the sections, and I had then, that following week when we got back, called the partner and left a message. He shot me a text and said, hey, I'll call you right back. So I didn't know if he had read them. He was in the middle of a merger and also finishing up his year in taxes. He's got multiple companies. So I understood that he was busy, but I was hoping that, again, the doubt in me is like, oh, he's looking at this going, yeah, no, I'm not going to partner with this guy. And he actually shot me an email first before he called me back with his explanation to every single question that I had. And then, his elaboration on how those things are dealt with and what that looks like. And at the end of the email said, I wanted you to have this in writing before I called you back. To me, that meant the world. And that says pretty much everything about how someone operates. You don't know how the future is going to hold, but this is how you tell if people are integral and trustworthy. He put his own explanation, not his attorney's explanation, but his own explanation of the contract, what it means to him, me, and the other partners in great detail, and wanted me to have that in writing before he even called me back and spoke to me, because that added such a level of trust and integrity on my end that it made me feel a lot more comfortable about that, because what I was advised is once you ask the questions, the way in which they respond to those questions will let you know, at least for an extent, to an extent, what level of trust you can have in those people. And my partner has been very forthcoming, obviously offering me up this opportunity. I don't own the building. I'm getting a building. My partnership is to facilitate with, building relationships for the company, raising equity for the company from friends and family, and helping to grow this development and building commercial business. And so I'm really excited to do that, and I do understand the opportunity. And then on top of that, so just on top of that level of integrity and clarity from the partner, he said, hey, so there was a couple sections on there that I didn't list, and he said, hey, can you send those sections on to me? So yesterday he shot me a text, said, hey, I haven't forgotten about you, just finished up my taxes, finished up with the merger. I'm going to answer all the remaining things that you asked me to do, which he's been very on point on that, like does not miss a beat. He responds to every email and addresses them completely. So I had pointed out a couple sections in there that I did not like the verbiage. I did not agree with the verbiage. I was also lacking clarity on the verbiage, the way that it was written in regards to compensation upon disassociation or exit of the company regarding fair market value. And there was some terminology in there that was contradictory to the operating agreement stating what I would get. And so I wanted to make sure that was very clear. There was 2 or 3 sections in there that I had addressed. He changed them all. He called his attorneys. They advised him on how I could be seeing the confusion and how that actually can be interpreted poorly, and the statement can be vague and unclear, And so they went in and actually revised all of those things, and then he pointed out how the operating agreement actually lists out the specifics of job roles and, in the event of an exit or a buyout or, a transfer of units, all of these things, and then they expanded the details on them. And I thought, wow, that's incredible. Like, I love that because that when you read the contract, it's very lawyered, it's very legalese, very lawyered up, very direct and to the point, and so it makes you feel like when you're reading those words, at least me, that I just don't have an option here. And they went ahead and changed a lot of verbiage, and it was an older operating agreement that we're revitalizing. So super excited to say that, hey, we've clarified on those things. I'll be moving forward with the Upside Equity, which is the name of the company that I'm partnering with, to be able to grow this business. And I cannot say how relieving that has been, because it's been a very stressful thing working on two operating agreements, two different business endeavors at the same time. But happy to say that both of them are going in an absolute awesome direction. Should be finishing both operating agreements this week, and then I will keep you updated. So wanted to get back with you on that, because I know I talked about a couple things and the way that things were verbiaged, and like what my thought process is on the choices that I would have to make, and ultimately one of them would be no. I would not be moving forward. But now at this point, we are both moving forward. We're on amicable terms, and I'm very excited for that. So keep paying attention. A lot of awesome things coming up. We're about to get into the equity raise side of it. So that'll be really nice for you guys to see, like, what that outreach looks like, who I'm reaching out to, how I knew those people, how I met them, what those conversations look like from an equity raising perspective. And I think most people that I know, that I grew up around, don't have any idea how to do that, and neither the fuck do I. So this will be the first for me. I've generated millions of dollars in the W-2 jobs that I've had, work my way up to a partnership that fell through in automotive. And, so a lot has been going on in my life, and if you go back through my videos, you can see it all. And the whole point of this is to be very clear about the good times and the bad times, and then what leads up to those. Because when people tell you about their hero story, and you see this like success all in one caption, in a 20-minute video or a 5-minute video, and you're just like, that's never going to happen to me, or why can't I get opportunities like that? Let me tell you that all those things that are undisclosed are literally, in my opinion, the epicenter of what fuels people to keep going. And so I want to continue to share these things with you to empower you that you can do these things. And it doesn't look as abrupt and profound as it sounds. Yes, people get windfalls and things like that, but there's so much in between and before that happens before they get that point. That's why if you really, just to give you an example, if you really follow a lot of very successful people who are transparent, because in my experience, I've talked to and surrounded myself with a lot of people who are very successful. They don't either care to explain the details of how they got there because it's so long-winded, or they just don't want to share it with you, or they got a windfall, right? Family member inheritance, or they've always had money, and I've noticed that. But the ones who really had to scrape, did not have the connections, did not grow up in the money world, did not grow up around people who even knew the industries or the endeavors that they were engaging in. They had to learn all these things through, their hustle and their exploration and, failures and successes. They will, talk about how people will ask them, when you got that $1 million, or when you hit that first $1 million, or when you sold your first business, what was that like? And you can always tell when the reality of the situation is that they didn't even know. Like, they were millionaires before they were millionaires, but they were doing a deal. They're working the progress of a deal, And to them, it wasn't about, there was so much going on and so many things involved with that, that they didn't even realize it. They didn't even get time to celebrate it. So it's not like the movies where you just like wake up one day and you're like, oh man, I'm a millionaire. I'm going to go spend all this money. I'm going to go have this different life. And I've realized that in my own life, not having been a millionaire yet, but that you just start to feel different over time because of the little things that you don't worry about, like, swiping your debit card for things, or worrying about it getting declined, or, you know, uh, making big purchases and then come back and feeling guilty about the money you spent. Like, those are the little things that you notice, but it's not like one ultimate big celebration like a lot of these stories you see and hear are, because you're in the middle of working so many things to be able to get to that ultimate result. So with that said, what I've come to understand more than anything in this life, and I hope that of any value that you get in this, it's enjoy the journey. The end result is great, but it's the journey that allows you to feel all the things. So embrace the small wins, because that's where you get the joy, right? The big wins come, but you're in so many things that it's not like, all right, cool, like I'm done, like now I've succeeded, I just get to quit, like, or I want to quit. You typically don't want to quit. Anybody who's a high achiever wants to keep going. So enjoy the day to day. Work on the little things in your life. Master the things that you can. Embrace the things that you have difficulty with, and accept that those may always be difficulties. You're never going to be a master at everything. That's just, it's not realistic. It's not logical. It's not possible. And you will wear yourself out thinking about how to be a master of all things and never really master anything. And so, focus on the things that you're really good at and maximize out the growth and the investment in those things. And then be mindful of the things that you're not good at and accept those things and operate in a way that allows you to play your strong suits, right? Like, if your right side is your best side, you're going to step to your right. You're going to lead with your right, and that's how your mind's going to think. So play with your right. Don't play with your left, but also be mindful that your left is your lesser of the strengths. And it doesn't mean that you still don't try to build it, but I think in all of that, enjoying the journey and understanding that you're a human and it's okay to make mistakes. The point is to enjoy it the best that you can. Put yourself out there beyond the fear that you have, because that's where all the great stuff is. And then just trust yourself and be okay with the insecurities that you may have, and be okay with the lack of strengths that you may have, and then master those strengths that you do have, and then just move forward. So again, embrace the journey. The result is great, but if we always live for the result, we'll never have a full life of enjoyment while we're doing the things. And the joy of doing the things is what gets you to the top. It's not just grind and hustle, because I've done that the majority of my life, just killed myself physically, mentally, spiritually, to get to a place because I thought that's what needed. And sometimes there's a need for that, and other times there's not. And so, you just got to be humble with yourself and be appreciative of all the things that you're learning, because a lot of them are painful, and you got to celebrate those too. So, guys, again, long-winded today, but wanted to get you a recap. It's been an incredible up and down roller coaster for the last 2 weeks, especially for my family. And so I'm grateful to be able to share these things with you, and I hope that it encourages you for whatever you want to do and whatever you're passionate about, that no matter what your state is, if you're down in the dumps and you're depressed, just know that will change as long as you continue to believe. And you will have doubts, and that's okay. But just continue to reach out to people and take things as an opportunity to learn, even if it's hard, and just keep going and have faith in yourself. Believe in yourself and enjoy even the painful moments, because that's what allows you to be prepared to receive great opportunities in the future. Stay lavish, guys.